Troy, what do you got?
We got a couple of ladies donated from Loyalist College. Very nice. Sweet. Very sweet.
Big welder.
What's this unit?
So you see the size of the welder?
Yeah.
That's the torch.
Wait, so it's it's TIG?
This is a TIG machine, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so it's a TIG and stick machine. We don't do any stick welding, but yep, she's a big girl.
She's a big girl.
Yeah.
What do you think, Rain?
I said if you set the camera down, we could probably hand bomb these.
Post flow. It's all mechanical.
It's the same as your camera.
Yeah.
I don't know what anything on your.
You good? I don't know what I need.
Ryan, the cold start. Yeah, so you lift this up off with your bare hands. Oh.
Not gonna do it.
Oh, not gonna do it.
Side dump when he fired it up?
Yeah, that was loud.
6 liter, baby.
He knows what's up.
6 liter. 6 liter. 6.6 liter. Jump. Jump.
See you, Ryan.
It's really cool to finally see this whole rear end come together left to right. We have the axles in, we have our inboard brake setup installed. I'm just gonna talk about it for a little bit. I basically made the brackets that hold the diff to the subframe incorporate a set of caliper mounts that hold the calipers to the diff. Dylan machined up these hats. These hat adapters basically go from the winner's diff to the rotor, and that is how we are able to connect our inboard brake setup. We talked with the quick change guys. This is actually how the quick changers were originally designed to run brakes. These mounts here that we use to hold the diff were actually caliper mounts for sprint cars, and they just kind of kept them as a mount from the solid axle design to the IRS design, independent rear suspension. We got the axles from Drive Shaft Shop, custom made. These things are long. These things are 4.5 inches longer than my S14, which shows you the difference in track width that this Corvette has just over that car without widening it at all. This is the same track width that is factory. It's 8 inches wider. Wild. Yeah, so there's not really much more to go along with that. We're halfway through the train, but we're still looking for the drive to complete the drivetrain. The engine's not done yet. I just got word that the pistons were shipped to Josh at FatMac. So he was telling me 3 days and that engine will be together, which puts us at an engine possibly by this weekend. And that would put us in a really good position to basically button up the whole car, because we got the drive shaft, we have the axles, we got it all, and it's all bolted up loosely, so we need to go through it with a fine-tooth comb, make sure everything's tight, everything's the way we want it, but it's looking really solid. We'll go over a couple of things that we got regarding wiring and some other cool things, but that's basically the update on the inboard brake setup, which got a ton of attention online. Lots of controversy, which is great, because the people that comment are just helping blow it up. They got their opinions, I got mine. Is there deflection in the axle that's going to affect the wheel? Is there slop in the axle that's going to create a delay between when I pull the handbrake and when it locks the wheel? Is locking the wheel at the diff going to put additional load on the axle that it otherwise wouldn't see? And how much more force is it relative to just accelerating and going through the normal abuse that an axle goes through? We all have our own opinion. My opinion is that braking is not as hard on an axle as accelerating, and clutch kicking is significantly harder just because of the suspension geometry and the weight that's behind the car when you accelerate. That is more load than locking up a tire, because as soon as the tire locks, it breaks the coefficient of friction and it has less grip than it has when it's rotating. So my personal opinion, this is going to work great. It's bringing 12 pounds per wheel inboard, central and lower than it would be if it was on the wheel, which as a race car enthusiast and talking about center of gravity and the importance of weight, that is benefit, benefit, benefit. Also, pulling the pads, I had my son do it. You can just pull a pad right out super easily. You don't even have to take the wheel off. So you could actually change the pads just by opening the trunk and changing the pads. So I see nothing but benefits. The other thing people were saying was heat management. Well, we have two massive fans pulling a ton of air through this area. So in my opinion, again, these brakes are gonna see more air running by them than they would if they were on the wheel. So other than changing the rotor, which I still haven't done on my S14, so I don't think that's gonna be an issue. Anyways, on to the next thing. You can buy your axles right here at FDF Race Shop. Shop online or hit us up by email. Visit www.fdfraceshop.com to get yours now.
Are they on the website?
That was pretty good.
Are they on the website?
No.
They're not on the website, but I could definitely add them.
Send us an email.
Because every quick change mount bracket that we sell, should have an option for add axles. Add axles. Come on, open it.
Oh!
So today we're mounting the radiator in Josiah's Corvette. He's made these brackets. They're just 065 aluminum. That's probably the wrong measurement. Anyways, we're gonna bend them to look like this. So that's before, that's after. Well, FDF logo, they go here. Oh, this is bad. I'm not showing you properly. Right here. So there's little holes in the radiator. They mesh with those holes, and then these holes go with these holes. So yeah, pretty simple bracket. I'm gonna get the other one bent up. Come with me. Little press brake. So Josiah designed these little notches where he wants it bent. So I'm just gonna press them up to the edge there. Do my best to line it up. Lock it in. Let's go. That should be close enough to 90. Chicken brown cow. This one is ugly. I'm gonna mount it on the bottom. This one is less ugly. This is the fan shroud. It houses these two 12-inch fans from Spall. It's just held in with a 2 3/8 bolts, and then some 3/16 plate that we welded up onto this crash structure here. So it just comes out, lifts right out. As you can see, it's just these simple little brackets with holes in them. Okay, I need about 69 M6 bolts and nuts.
I think you're undershooting.
Wash away the pain. All right, so now the bracket is bolted to the shroud. We're gonna bolt the bracket to the radiator. It's pretty simple like that. So this is basically just an L bracket mounting the shroud to the radiator. And the same story goes on this side. All right, so I got the bolts bolted on from the shroud to the radiator. Just all M6 nuts and bolts. I'm gonna give them a tighten now, and then we're gonna throw it in the car.
Surge tank and overflow. Summer racing.
Do I have it? I don't have it on right. Just scratching everything.
Sick, Kyle.
What's
I
up?
see a red tank in there.
Yeah,
Fits good?
no, it does not fit good.
Why?
Because I had to
Oh, it's completely open on this side.
So I mounted up this fire suppression tank. It just uses the Sparco brackets that it comes with, and it tucks nicely under this gas tank shield. We had to space it away from the car a little bit just to get it to clear the shield, because this gas tank shield bends in a little bit compared to this one. I think it's for the exhaust. It causes the tank to hit the corner right there. So if you just mount it straight to the wall there, it'll come in contact with this bend. So
We've got a couple cool things that came in. My brother still needs to come in and build the chassis harness, but we just got the Link ECU to LS engine harness from Wiring Specialists. This comes with everything that we're gonna need I also had to give them the details on like our alternator position, our intake air temperature. All those things are kind of moved around relative to where they would have been on an LS. Because we're running the alternator backwards on the passenger side. It's going to be interesting to say the least on how that's going to work. But DC Engineering assured me that the alternator can be run backwards, so we're going to do that. Because our huge exhaust goes down the whole driver's side. Another cool thing that we got is our suspension travel potentiometers. These we ordered in a specific length and size to suit our suspension. So we're gonna be running one of these on each corner of the chassis. We're gonna be collecting the data, graphing it, and basically building up a table for when the car performs well and what the suspension was doing, and building up a data sheet so that we can refer to it after an entire season of collecting data. So because we have these doesn't mean that the first event we're going to be able to dial our car in and win against everybody. We're basically just going to be collecting data throughout the entire year, so when next year we can say what event did the car work really well and what was the suspension doing. We have these to measure that. I'll kind of show you how they go on. So on the front, there's a couple areas where I could put it, but I think that I'm going to be running it something like this. So we'll make a little bracket at the top. We'll probably just drill a hole in the arm at the bottom. It's important to put these in a position where they're not going to be easily damaged. The middle of the arms is probably the safest place for the front. And what this is going to do is it's going to measure the height that the suspension is at while we're racing. So we're going to see what each corner does. This way we're going to be able to tune in a sway bar, we're going to be able to tune in dampening, spring rates, bump steer, bump, compression, like whatever you want to talk about, you'll be able to read and change using the information that you get from these. Along with those, we're also going to be including tire temperature sensors that are infrared, and they measure the tire's temperature across 32 different points. This again is going to be information data collection stuff, but basically if you check a tire for camber wear, obviously if you have camber wear, it's going to be hotter on the side that has, let's say you have too much negative camber. The inside of the tire is going to be, the tread you're going to see is more worn than the outside. The temperature sensor would also give you this in real time, telling you that the inside of the tire is hotter than the outside. And just using that alone, we'll be able to adjust the alignment of the rear kind of live. Like you can see the wear pattern of a tire at the end of a run or halfway through and make your adjustments, but they're not going to be as precise. So we're really going to be able to dial that in. And then also we're going to be able to see like what the boiling point of these tires are when we have the maximum amount of grip and when we have too much slip. And there is definitely a balance to having too much wheel speed and not enough. So as we collect the temperature data, we're going to be seeing when the car was fast and when it wasn't, and what the temperature readings were, and even relative to what the potentiometers were telling us. Put it all together, build up a whole data sheet, and we're going to be able to see a lot of stuff. And I know some of the bigger teams in FD are already doing this type of stuff, but you have to start before you get there. You can't do this stuff while you're there. So that's pretty much it for like cool updates and new parts. We're just going to be starting to do brake line measuring, coolant hose running, fuel and coolant hose running, and seeing where we can fit everything. We're probably just gonna end up putting our dummy engine back in so that we can do some of this routing. The engine's not done yet. Just try to make the best of the time while we can, because we want this car to be running and on the dyno mid to late April, and then driving within the first to second week of May so that we can get as much seat time in it as possible this year. You know why we put this baby here? Because it's heavier than our battery. I was gonna put our battery here. Very important to keep the lowest center of gravity as possible, so we're throwing all the weight, trying to make it central as best we can, but also keeping it as low as we can. I think after we corner balance and find the CG of this car, that this car is gonna have like 150 mil lower center of gravity than my S14. I'm not putting money on it, I could. I think it's between 100 and 150 millimeters lower, which the potential for speed in corner using the same tires and same everything is gonna be 10-15% higher just based off that alone than my S14. So the chassis is super impressive, and we do have a lot of really sick alignment tools that we're gonna be showing you guys from Smart Racing Products that they sent us: camber gauges, string alignment system, and corner balancing wireless scales. So the stuff that you guys are going to be able to see us do with this car is might be a little overkill for a drift car, but it is still going to be really interesting to see and compare what we're able to do. Really exciting, really cool stuff.
Yeah.
Okay.
3, 2,
2, 1.
1. Dude, that's high.
You guys don't want to mow it?
No, we're good.
K-series, eh?
No. That's funny.
We're underneath the car, just finishing up the transmission mount, and we need to give a big shout out to Drive Shaft Shop. This is a full carbon fiber drive shaft, significantly lighter than steel and aluminum, and also it's stronger. With one more added bonus, the carbon fiber drive shaft absorbs a lot of the shock load from a clutch kick. So this actually, when I changed to one of these on my S14, I stopped breaking axles from that initial impact because this has an absorbing function to it. Versus aluminum, which is pretty good, and then steel or chromoly is definitely like maximum shock load directly to your axles and diff. So this actually prevents drivetrain failures. It's a little more expensive, but it is totally worth it. Also, if a failure happens with a carbon fiber drive shaft, it does not risk destroying the tunnel in the car. It will simply shred itself. So for the added cost and all the benefits, it is definitely worth it. You gotta go visit Drive Shaft Shop to get it. All you got to do is give them your measurements between the seal of the transmission and the pinion of the diff. Tell them the length, tell them the yoke and whatever you need, the transmission you're running, and that's all they need. They can make you one in a couple weeks. It's a beautiful thing. So they're the only ones that I'm going to run on this car. This car is going to be running 1,000 horsepower, so I have to be... No, we only need the 2. Just the 2. Anyways, I also am running their axles, custom length, 1,000 horsepower rated axles. I ordered 3 of them, so I've got the 2 on the car plus 1 spare. We're getting the transmission mount now powder coated. I was debating whether or not to make this cover a Lexan clear cover. I don't know if that would be cool or not. Leave a comment on what you think if this transmission cover on the passenger side should be made of something clear so that you can see the starter. Maybe, no, you won't be able to see the exhaust, but you'll be able to see some cool components through the transmission. Comment on the safety and what you think on there.